You guys know how passionate I am to see parents discipling their children in the Bible. And while it doesn't have to be complicated, it does have to be intentional. That's why I'm excited to introduce you guys to the Illuminate Bible series from my friends at Lifestone Ministries. This is a Bible curriculum that's designed to grow with your child from first grade all the way through high school. So whether your child is just starting to read or asking deeper questions about faith and culture, Illuminate meets them right where they are and helps them build a lasting relationship with Jesus. Each week, you'll walk through a simple 5-step approach. You'll look at a Bible story, check out the context around it, see how it connects to the rest of Scripture, study the theology behind it, and find out what it means for real life. It's designed for families, so you don't need 5 different books for 5 different kids. You can go through it together using workbooks tailored to the ages of your kids. So if you've been looking for a way to disciple your kids without adding more stress to your day, this is it. For more information, visit lifestoneministries.com/Heidi to learn more about this amazing homeschooling tool. The Supreme Court of the United Kingdom recently ruled, in a unanimous ruling, by the way, that a woman is someone born biologically female. Let's have a moment of silence for what appears to be a little bit of common sense returning to the world stage. My guest today is Pastor Sam Sanden. We're going to be dishing about some geopolitical politics and talking about the slow creep of Marxism and socialism here in the United States. You guys, I hope that you enjoy this conversation. It's being sponsored in part by my friends at the Functional Medical Institute. You can find out more about them by going to homeschoolhealth.com. We are so glad you're here. Stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. Shout out to our sponsor, the Functional Medical Institute. I love those guys. Check them out at homeschoolhealth.com and be sure and use the coupon code Heidi for 20% off your entire purchase. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Listen, I know that you guys are busy and you got lots of things you could be doing. I really appreciate you listening to the podcast and sharing it with your friends. We appreciate you putting it on automatic download, leaving reviews for us, and also sending questions into me, which you can do by going to HeidiSt.John.com/Mailbox Monday. This is my speaking season, and I've had a little bit of hiccups in my speaking season this year, as you guys well know. And so if you're interested in what I'm doing, you can find out more about me by going to HeidiSt.John.com and click on the merch tab, because all of our awesome merchandise is in the store right now, including my new favorite t-shirt, Born for This, which Sharnessa is sitting in the studio with me today, and I probably should hand her one before she leaves, because I'm telling you, this is a great looking shirt, and I really do think you guys are born for this time in human history, and there's nobody better to talk about that than my guest today. Sam Sanden is in the studio with me. Sam is an associate pastor at Father's House Church in Longview, Washington, and he and his wife Sharnessa have been married for nearly 25 years, 2 of my favorite people on the planet. Welcome, Sam. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Listen, Linda, look at this. The Supreme Court is of the UK, and actually there's going to be a similar case coming before the Supreme Court here, because this needs to go to the Supreme Court.
Right.
I mean, because apparently we're too dumb in this country to not know what a woman is unless the Supreme Court tells us.
Yep.
I don't have a ton of faith in the Supreme Court as it stands right now. I'm not ever really sure what Justice Chief John Roberts is going to do, or what Amy Coney Barrett's going to do, or Neil Gorsuch is going to do. Some of these guys are like, I don't know. I mean, it's very weird. But some good news out of the UK, and I know that this matters to you because you're from Sweden, and you know a little bit about what's going down there. But they ruled that a woman is someone born biologically female, and this move excludes now transgender women from the legal definition of a woman. I mean, can you hear the liberals screeching and yelling?
Yeah, there's hope.
Yes. Yeah. What do you make of the shift?
Well, it's odd, but Europe actually has been ahead of the U.S. in regards to both like banning trans surgeries for minors, and obviously, I guess now, because this kind of came out of the blue for me also when I saw it this morning, that there's some sanity still going on in the British system, which is encouraging, because now it's 25 years since I lived there. I lived there for 4 years. And it was very squishy back then, even in regards to people standing up.
Oh, they're losing free speech rights over there.
Big time.
I mean, it's frightening what's happening over there.
And that also highlights the importance of, for us, understanding the Constitution, because it's not the same over there, right? And when they decide that you can be prosecuted for something you posted 2 years ago on Facebook, that's just absurd. It's insane.
Yeah.
And it's going to stifle any sort of, public discourse or debate, which, for us as Americans, that's enshrined in the First Amendment, recognizing that we have that right to debate. And the more you come in, and I think this is the symptom of, where the government keeps overreaching and overstepping their boundaries, where they want to decide about everything in your life, right? And it doesn't happen overnight, but it's happening. And we have to be aware. We see that in America, even in Washington State.
Yeah.
But I think England in particular, I know when I lived there 20 years ago, there was definitely a big push towards favoring like the Muslim community.
Yeah.
And they knew how to play all the cards and say they were the victims, they were the being persecuted, and religious
racism, intolerance, bigotry.
Yeah. And they used
all
that,
of the buzzwords.
They weaponized that in such a way that you could hardly build a church in London, but if you want to build a mosque, you could pick and choose wherever you wanted. And we see the fruit of that now 20 years later, where the Muslim faith is just expanding like crazy, and are over.
And it's not just Muslim faith.
No.
It's radical Islam.
Yeah.
That is the problem that they're dealing with, and it's going to hurt them big time. I read a headline recently that says that Britain is now considered the Western capital for Sharia law courts, as 85 of these Sharia law courts have opened throughout the UK. 85 courts that don't recognize the courts of the UK.
Right. That's 85
well,
too
who
many.
would even do that?
Right.
You want Sharia law? Go back to Iran and do it there.
And I think that's the misconception we have as Americans, that we don't realize that Islam is truly a political system
100%.
masquerading as a religion.
Yes.
While you have, communism is a religion masquerading as a political system. And it's crazy. And I think we are so unaware of the long-term gain and the long-term plans for this, that just sitting back and thinking that it's going to go away, it's not going to happen.
No, I read that as soon as, some people are saying that it's going to be as little as a decade from now when you won't recognize Europe at all.
Right.
I mean, especially not UK, UK, because they're being overrun by this, and they've taken tolerance to a whole new level.
Yep.
And they're so concerned with what people say. I mean, freedom of speech has really been lost from what I can tell. I mean, Europe, it seems to me, to have changed its mind on freedom of speech. And we're seeing videos now come out of London, all across the UK. Certainly this is happening in Ireland, where they're putting people in prison for things that they're saying online.
What does that remind you of? That's former Russia or Soviet Union, right? The Eastern Bloc, and that's what happened all under that bloc and in China. And it's happening under the guise of being Western, but it's the same thing, and the impact and the practical outworking of it's going to be the same, to stifle dissidents. And that's part of totalitarianism. Yeah,
it seems like, I mean, they've been introducing punitive hate speech laws. So they can actually, if you say something that somebody else doesn't like, I mean, I've watched videos, and I know you have too, of the police in London going up to someone and saying, you said this, and immediately they're like, well, I actually meant, oh, yes, but you use this word and you use that word. And we have in the United States freedom of speech, thank God, right now. It's written into our Constitution, right? One of the most important amendments that we have is the freedom of speech. But if we don't protect it, and if we don't pay attention to what's happening in Europe, I mean, these laws are being used to stop Europeans from expressing insulting or degrading thoughts, particularly those that target a person's physical appearance or their religion. Comedy is certainly dead in the UK. I mean, Bill Maher not going to get over there and have much of a career. Right.
And what religions are they talking about? Because anyone
you can make fun of Christianity all day long.
All day long. And it's unbelievable where this is going. And we see, how they're pushing back on X. Now want to censor X because of the freedom that has been regained because of Musk coming in and buying X. So they want to stifle that even as a foreign entity. They want to cut that down
So
internationally.
afraid of freedom of thought.
Yeah.
They're just so afraid that maybe their ideas aren't the best ideas,
Right.
and that people will start talking about it. George Orwell put it best. He said, if liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear.
Yeah.
And, I might not like what you have to say, Sam, but I'm going to defend it to the death.
Right.
Your right to say it.
Yep.
Free speech is important.
It is, because how can you have a common dialogue if there's no free speech? We saw that even in the COVID debate, right?
Boy.
Where everything was shut down. Any alternative view was completely quashed. So how can we find the truth if we're not allowed to go back and forth and debate and to bring to light these issues? Because then it becomes literally the thought police. And we see that in England too, where you have people standing, 100 yards away from a abortion clinic, praying silently in their head, and they're being put to jail because they are thinking or praying completely silently. And where do you draw that line? It's totalitarian, and this is the total opposite why we fought the Revolutionary War, and to have that freedom. And again, freedom of speech. It's the 10 First Amendments, right? The Bill of Rights was to put handcuffs on the government for them to not to encroach on these rights.
Yeah, the Founding Fathers knew a thing or two about the powers of an unchecked government, which is why they gave us the protections that they did. It wasn't to protect us from each other.
Right.
It was to protect us from the overreach of the government.
Yeah.
It seems like the UK desperately needs a constitution that reflects the rights of the people to say what they want to say and to be heard.
Right, an equal application of the law, because that's what's so blatant in all this, how certain groups are so favored, and that anything goes in this camp, but you can't even think in this camp and you're being put to jail. And it's outrageous, and we have to be aware of it, because if we're not, it's going to be us in 20 years. And we even see that in Washington State right now with some of the bills coming down where you can't have an opinion, or at least you don't have a free choice in regards to the vaccine issues coming down now.
Yeah.
And our founding fathers didn't say, these are your rights unless there's an emergent, health emergency.
Right. And I mean, the founding fathers were very aware of health emergencies. I mean, these guys were not immune to things like the bubonic plague and smallpox and things like that. And yet, even though they lived in a time when modern medicine wasn't nearly as advanced as it is right now, they never wrote into the Constitution that the government can come in under the guise of an emergency, which is what's happening in Washington State. I mean, they're passing these laws, and the clauses are they're using these emergency powers to do things that are absolutely unconstitutional, that no one has voted for. And then when we do vote for things like the Parental Bill of Rights, this supermajority that the Democrats have in the legislature, they're going in and stripping these things. And it's not just happening here in Washington. It's happening in Wisconsin. It's happening in Illinois.
Colorado.
There's a terrible, in Colorado, there is a terrible attack right now against homeschooling in Illinois. And I know the Homeschool Legal Defense Association is on it. I'm going to be speaking there shortly at their state convention in Illinois. But this requires vigilance. I mean, was it Thomas Paine that said that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance? Did he say that? Someone should look that up. Someone said it. Someone said it.
Right.
But we're paying a pretty heavy price for our lack of vigilance.
Yeah, it's like a muscle, right? You have to keep exercising it. And if we don't exercise this right of knowing what's going on, being engaged, then when we see the writing on the wall, it's going to be too late, right? So we have to be engaged now, and we can't just be reactive.
Right.
We have to be proactive. We have to be engaged in the process. And unfortunately, a lot of us, we think we don't know enough, or we're no experts, or we don't know what to think about these issues, so we just disengage completely and we have someone else think for us. And I think that's part of what we see happening in England and in Sweden and in other places where, well, of course, government want the best for me. So it's in my best interest to obey or do what the government says, because they're the experts. They know what's best for me. And we have traded that freedom, which is really dangerous.
For a false sense of safety.
Because freedom is dangerous. Because it comes with responsibility, and I have to be engaged. And the outcome is not guaranteed. But we were meant to have that freedom, right? And when we start to go along, all it takes is a few rotten eggs that sets it in a different direction, right? And before we know it, we've lost our rights, and we've lost the freedom to speak on these issues. And we start to believe that we don't know what's best for us, and we surrender that right, the sphere of the family or sphere of education that God has given us to be exercising authority. I know what's best for my kids because they're my kids. The government hasn't raised my kids. They don't know what my kids are like.
And they don't have the best interest of your child at heart. The government, and this is stated in every lawsuit in America that the government brings, the government is going to recognize and defend the interest of the state.
Yeah.
They're not going to recognize and defend the interest of your child.
Right.
And that's the state's only interest.
Yep.
When so many voices are trying to shape our kids, raising children who love the Lord and know what's true has never felt more urgent or more challenging. That's why I've teamed up with my friends at Brave Books to give you guys 2 tools to support you as parents and grandparents. A copy of my children's book, The Mouse and the Sea, and free access to Brave Plus, which is the streaming platform I trust with my own grandkids. You guys are going to get both for free when you become Brave Books subscribers and start receiving a new values-based children's story every month. Each one of them is going to be rooted in biblical truth. Now with Brave Plus, it's like getting 2 subscriptions in one. It's filled with kids shows, all carefully vetted by real parents for mental, emotional, and spiritual impact. I've trusted Brave with my family for years, and I'm deeply grateful for how their stories unite families and shape kids' character for good. You can go to HeidiBrave.com to get your free book and streaming access right now. That's Heidi Brave, HEIDI, Brave.com. So if the state comes to you and says, well, they have a compelling argument, for example, that's what they're trying to say in Washington state, right? The state is making the case that the state knows better what you should do with your children, Sam, than you do.
Yep.
And when they can make that case and then, you elect people that believe this philosophy, it's such a devastating philosophy. Yep. And then they take that thing to the next level in the state legislature. Well, all of a sudden, you and I are enslaved by it.
Right.
And that's the end goal.
Yep. And this is part of the progressive state structure anyway, right? That you have these unelected bureaucrats who are making the laws and the decisions. And even the people we send to Congress, many times they abdicate that role to these bureaucrats who are
these unelected people. I mean, this is Father Fauci, the high priest of the Branch Covidians. Right. This unelected, and if people understood this guy's history, I mean, I think that we're going to be talking about the constitutional overreach, the lack of our understanding of the Constitution allowed them to take an unconstitutional overreach into the lives of ordinary Americans under the guise of a, quote, national emergency. And I think we're going to be talking about this, Sam, for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. Well, I hope so, because I hope we didn't get to the point where...
Yeah, we better learn. Yeah, like the Israelites, right? The Israelites were like, oops, forgot about that. Forgot about the parting of the Red Sea. Forgot about the slavery thing in Egypt that we actually didn't like. They forgot about it. Probably, you're right. I mean, probably, Sam, we should be talking about it just so we don't forget.
Right, because I see that on a local level. You have parents who are really engaged when the kids started having to wear masks in school or taking out the schools. But the moment the school took the mask mandate off, it's like, oh, no, it's fine. Now I can send my kid back to school. Well, nothing has really shifted.
Yes.
But it's that convenience. We're trading convenience for slavery in a sense, right? We are either we're surrendering our kids,
we're allowing
or our
them
rights.
to enslave us.
We are willingly, for convenience, handing that
what do you
right over.
Say? This is interesting that you would say that, because I have been for a couple of months now on the show. I got to be in my bonnet, okay? So hear me out. I think we're lazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think we take the path of least resistance, and you put someone who has totalitarian mindset in the government, and you mix that person up with a group of people, citizens, who are conditioned to take the path of least resistance, right? You tell me to stand at a dot in the grocery store, like a stupid sheep. I'm going to stand there. I don't know why I'm doing it. I just don't want you to yell at me.
Right.
I don't want you to yell at me. And so the path of least resistance in the Rona was for us to just go, okay, fine, we'll slap a mask on our face. This bacteria-laden piece of garbage that we're putting on our face. Also, you look stupid. But those things aside, clearly I have strong feelings about that. I'm wondering for parents, because there are lots of parents listening, is how do we train our kids, Sam? Because you've trained a couple of warrior young men, and these boys know what they know what they're about. They know what they believe, and I can't wait to see kind of what God does with them in the years to come, because I think it's going to be profound. But how do parents teach their kids to not take the path of least resistance? I think we do it by modeling first. Right. We don't take the path of least resistance, and then when they do it, we're like, "That listen, we taught you different." What do you think? Right.
Yeah, you have to teach a kid that we're not quitters. We are people of hard work. We do what we say we.
You're not a gentle parenter.
No, but at the same time, it's not. It's
me either.
I'm
just asking.
And, well, as a youth pastor, youth pastor for 9 years.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes I'm looking at the youth today, and I'm like, the lack of expectations of youth, it's mind-boggling. As a youth pastor, it's like I'm expecting these kids to be able to pursue the Lord, understand Scripture, and that they can handle what I'm talking about.
And that they'll put the time in to study God's Word for themselves.
Right. But if I'm only teaching VeggieTale stories to the youth, that's the level. We rise to the lowest level of expectation.
That's so true.
And we need to get to a place where we're expecting things of kids, not more than we would expect of ourselves. And, we make mistakes, and be honest about that. But model as much as you can and include them. Have them be part of, so they see, the reasoning, why we do the way we do things. If we have conversations back and forth, me and Sharnessa with the boys, we include them as well, and we work things through.
Yeah, you're not assuming that they can't understand what you're talking about because they're young.
Right.
You're talking about things that maybe would be above their pay grade because you're elevating their expectation, and you're saying, my expectation of you is that you can actually grasp these concepts.
Right.
And so we're going to engage with you. We're going to bring you into the conversation. I mean, one of the most fascinating things I think about Charlie Kirk and a lot of the people that are out on college campuses right now is their engagement with these college students and just how completely inept. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. This is not me, this is not a personal stab. This is just it's an observation that we've got young people, they're like, who fought in the Civil War? And they're like, I don't know, the Japanese.
Tell me 5 states.
Yeah, tell me 5 states can't do it. We have lowered the bar so badly for this generation of young people. And I think parents need to be raising the bar. Right? Raise the bar for your kids.
Yeah, instead of farming it out by sending our kids to school or even sending our kids to youth group. I'm all for kids being engaged in a youth group.
Yeah, but if you think that it's your youth pastor's job to train your child, you're missing the point.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. Is you have to be engaged and you have to be part of that process. That's one of the beautiful benefits of homeschooling our boys. We got that time with them. We can process things and we can help shape what they're learning about. And instead of what you see now is the environment they're in on social media is that it's very low information, right? In a sense, so it's following these other echo chambers, right, of information.
It's the path of least resistance.
Right. Instead of being able to articulate why you believe what you believe.
Let's have a robust debate.
Right. And that we see that also, when we send church kids to go to college and 75% lose their faith while in college. We haven't done a good job as parents to prepare them for that because they should be able to understand what they believe, not just believe what I believe because I believe it.
Right.
But they do it themselves.
Yeah.
And we need to get better at that, but also have the expectation that we need to be hands-on with our youth and be able to show what it looks like to follow Jesus, to be in the Word, and to live out our faith. If my life doesn't reflect what I, in private and what I do on a Sunday morning, I'm missing the mark. And why would they want to follow Jesus? If he doesn't change my life on a practical level, why should he change their lives? And we have to come back to expecting more and be willing to work hard and to come back to some of these basic principles of responsibility and stewardship and just being willing to do the hard things.
Have you found that, because I think sometimes, and I think this is even true with homeschooling parents, I think they're afraid sometimes to engage with their kids in these topics because the parents feel like they don't know enough.
Right.
So, for example, before we started recording, you and I were talking about Marxism versus socialism versus fascism versus communism. And a lot of parents, I think, are dodging these conversations because they don't feel equipped enough. But the reality is, if you're committed, I think, to teaching this stuff to your kids, then you learn right along with them.
Right.
I mean, do you feel like you guys have learned a lot in just homeschooling your kids yourselves, or did you guys come to the table like with your PhDs?
No, I knew everything already, but Ternessa learned a lot. No, that's the thing. We're perpetual learners, right?
Yeah.
And if we think we know it all, we missed the mark, right? We're self-deluded, right? So we need to be willing to learn, and I think there's a lot of opportunities out there where people are just lazy in providing or lazy to take advantage of it, I guess is the word. So we just did 8 weeks of biblical citizenship, which is a great course.
And people can get that where? Because I think that's important. We've done it here. It's great.
And it's free. You have to sign up as a coach to get access to these videos, but it's patriotacademy.com.
This is Rick Green's big deal.
This is, and it's fantastic. And so we just did that, and we had you on for one of, we did a Q&A after, which was fantastic, where you talked about your run for Congress and what the government does. But I think, so we provided that for our church, but what really broke my heart in a sense is how few youth that are taking interest in that. And you will need some nudging from parents probably, but hey, let's do this together.
Or bring your kids. I mean, and you don't even have, I just feel like parents should be like, oh, you don't want to go? Oh, well, we're going to go anyway. We're going to go anyway. And maybe you sweeten the deal by saying, well, we'll go for ice cream afterwards or something. We'll go for ice cream. We can talk about what we learned. But it's bringing that sort of
This
atmosphere.
is what we do as a family.
This is our family. We bring this atmosphere of learning. We're learning these things together. I famously say, you cannot pass on what you don't possess.
Right.
And we can't pass on a love for freedom to our children if we don't have that love for it ourselves, or if we don't understand the basic tenets of the Constitution or the Bill of Rights and why it's so important. Some of us didn't have the privilege of growing up with Schoolhouse Rock, but I did. And I think as we watch this stuff after school, that for a lot of us in school, because I went to a private Christian school in Portland, and we did not learn the Constitution, dude. They did not. This is, in the late 70s, early 80s, they didn't teach us this stuff. And so now here we are 40 years later, and we're seeing our freedoms fly out the window, and we're watching the slow march of communism, really, and Marxism into our country. And if we're looking for that stuff, then we're going to know. I was reading, and I think this is interesting, because it gets confusing, and I talk about this stuff on my show a lot, but the differences between, say, Marxism and fascism. So here in the Pacific Northwest, we famously host the beautiful people of Antifa, and they burn down cities and such. And you guys will know them when you see them because they wear black masks because I guess they're afraid of the Rona.
They are,
They're so afraid.
And they wear umbrellas to protect from the rain.
From the rain. It's important, and we applaud them for that. Marxism focuses on class struggle, which, this is Black Lives Matter, who, Patrisse Cullors, the founder of Black Lives Matter, which, by the way, is just a Marxist organization. She said that they were trained Marxists, and Marxists advocate for collective ownership, right, and economic equality. Fascism, on the other hand, focuses on extreme nationalism. So authoritarianism, the supremacy of the state over individual rights. And these, the ideologies are really, they're at odds with each other, because one would group the people, another one would give the power solely to the government, right? This is authoritarianism. Right. You see this in Europe. You're from Sweden. What is the system of government in Sweden right now? And have you seen it change over the years, or has it always been the way it is now with very little change?
It's changed changed a bit in the last probably 15 years, and that's mainly because of immigration policies. So this is a different subject, but going back to Sweden, we've leaned heavily socialistic.
Because you have dual citizenship.
I do,
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. I want to take a moment to say thank you to our sponsor today. Today's show is being sponsored in part by my friends at Give, Send, Go. And it's a pretty amazing partnership because months ago, before I received my medical diagnosis, we had been hoping to partner with this amazing company. And I had no idea that I was going to be on the receiving end of a Give, Send, Go campaign. But I can tell you it's been an incredible blessing for me. And I love what these guys are doing. They are really crowdfunding with a gospel message and sharing the light of Christ and helping us fulfill the mandate in Galatians 6:2, where we are really commanded to bear one another's burdens, and in so doing, fulfill the law of Christ. One of the things that's awesome about Give, Send, Go is that they have a prayer team that you can join and pray for the campaigns that you see online. So even if you can't give right now, you can pray. There is power in your prayers, and I love what the Lord is doing through the platform at Give, Send, Go. Check them out at givesendgo.com.
Basically, the 1900s, I would say the socialist Democrats, which is what they're called in Sweden.
I love that term. Okay, because a socialist Democrat is really just
at least
a
it's
socialist.
obvious there. Yeah. So, but they've probably been in power 80%. I'm just guessing, right? 80% of the last 120 years, right? So for most people growing up, that's what they used to. They used to paying, 25% sales tax.
Yeah.
Unless it's food, then it's 20% sales tax.
That is insane.
They're so generous, right? 5% less. And then your lowest income tax bracket is like 31%.
Yeah.
So this is the cost of the socialist dream.
Yes.
But if this is what you were born into, you don't know that this is not normal compared to like America. So you have that, but then you also have a Lutheran work ethic that comes from the Reformation. So you have people that are working hard.
Really hard workers to give their money to the government.
Exactly. And which basically, if you take the 31% plus the 25, you're at 55%. Basically, of your income is gone, right?
Yeah.
But if that's all you know,
we're feeling that way in Washington State right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to tell you, I feel it as a business owner.
Yeah. Right.
It's no joke.
Yeah. And but if that's all you know, you kind of, well, this is it. And used to you get free healthcare to a certain extent. It's not completely free. That's not true. It's a lot of delays and all this kind of stuff. You get free education. That's true. But it comes with a heavy cost, right? So
well, and your free education keeps you in a socialist mindset.
Right, exactly, because this is how we do things, and you trust the government. The government knows best what's for you. So it's communism light, but it's a weird mixture because you have that Lutheran work ethic, so you still have surprisingly a lot of innovative, like some kind of entrepreneurialism. So you have some businesses that are still growing, and working hard. But
you have to work. I mean, personally, I would think if you want to get ahead, or you have a dream house that you want to buy, or you'd have to work really, really hard,
right?
Because half your money is going to somebody else,
or you're living a borrowed lifestyle, which is kind of more. So in Sweden, because of this, the high taxes. Your middle class is very condensed. Most people are right here. In America, you have more
a pretty broad middle class, which they're slowly diluting. Yes,
right. But so in Sweden, it's kind of like you fit in there. You don't ruffle feathers. It's what they call in Australia the tall poppy syndrome, right? That if someone is successful, they become kind of the envy, and you shouldn't be that. That's not right. You're not. We have the term called lagom, which is not too hot, not too cold, not too much. Not too little.
Oh, I have a book with that name on it.
Lagom, yeah. So
now I know what it means.
So this is the whole mindset, right? So you stay within your circle. You don't go outside that. So it's kind of like you're content where you're at with a little, or and so that's kind of what it's been. But it keeps everyone down in a sense, right? You wouldn't think that, or you wouldn't believe that if you're in Sweden, if you haven't seen some of the other stuff, right? But that's kind of what you're used to. But then what really shifted probably about 15, 20 years ago was you had a bunch of immigrants coming from Syria and former Yugoslavia was even earlier. And then, so you had a huge influx. And so Sweden started, like a lot of the European countries, take a lot of refugees in, or just migrants, right? It's hard to know if they're refugees or migrants. And there's some that have very valid reasons,
There's
right?
a lot of people listening to this don't understand the difference between a migrant and a refugee. What's the difference?
So a migrant is someone who wants to move to get a better life. And a refugee is someone who's at the stake of their lives.
They're fleeing persecution. Yeah.
And there's a big difference. And we see here in America now that with the whole immigration issue, that just because you want a better life doesn't mean another country needs to take you in. Yeah, and that's
Different than an asylum seeker. Different
Exactly.
Actually, we're seeing here in the United States, I mean, it's amazing to me that not to make this about the Democrats who are so stupid on the immigration issue, that they are saying they're defending MS-13.
Right.
You know, because you can't send that guy back to El Salvador because people want to kill him. Yeah, because he's a murderer.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah. So if someone in Germany is at a feud, or Italian mobster, right?
Right, yeah.
In Italy.
Poor guy.
Wanted to escape for his life when he comes to America.
Yeah.
Is he a refugee? No,
Right.
that's not how it works.
No.
Yeah. And
yeah, there's a hit on him and he's trying to come here to avoid it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Not
whole
the
different
same.
Story. No.
Yeah.
So what happened then? Because no one of the established parties, so in Sweden we have, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 parties. It's a lot. It's a bigger, more parliamentarian system,
Okay.
right? And none of the parties are big enough to rule on their own.
6 or 7 or 8 political parties?
Yeah. So basically, if you get more than 4% in the election, you get a seat at the table.
Wow.
And then within that, kind of like in Israel, you have to have coalitions with different parties. So you usually have a right bloc, you have a left bloc.
Okay.
And sometimes it's been like where you had like the Green Party or whatever, that would then be kind of, you would have one party that would be the tipping point. So they have a disproportionate amount of power compared to the other ones. You could have a party with like 4%, 5%, but they could be the one that tips the majority.
Wow.
So, which is interesting in itself. And we have the left party, the communists, that dropped the name, so now it's just the left party. They're small, but anyway, side point.
Sneaky. Sneaky.
So with this issue that was coming in, and if you're a small country with 9-10 million people, if you all of a sudden bring in 100, 200, 300,000 people, and I don't remember the number, but at least 100,000. So you have 100,000 refugees comes in, when you have a fine-tuned country where, you know, the schools are set for a certain amount of people. If you don't, even if it's like 1%, it's going to affect, you know, housing, is going to affect the schools, it's going to affect the welfare system. So it started really impacting the whole of the society just because of the sheer numbers. But none of the established parties would speak to that. So then you had a party that the concept of...
Because they didn't want to be seen as intolerant or anti-immigration or a bigot.
So you had this resentment for the lack of policy, period, come in. So then you have and I've been following this from afar from the last 25 years. So I'm generalizing probably a few things, and a Swede would take me to task probably at it. But you had this one issue party that said we need to stop immigration. And since they were the only ones that were speaking to the issue, all of a sudden, almost overnight, they came in at 15-20%. So it really shifted the whole climate in Sweden. So no longer did one of the two blocs have a majority. No one wanted to rule with the racist party. It really it shifted things. But it made them realize we have to really start having a conversation about what works, at what point, who do we let in, who do we not let in, how do we shift, because when you're in that small of a country, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And that's not counting the sociological impact, where you have a bunch of people with a different value system coming in.
And they're not assimilating.
Exactly.
They're creating their own communities and their own... I mean, the last time I was in Paris, I mean, it's been a long time. It was shocking to me.
Yeah.
Different parts of Paris that you would go to and you don't even recognize them, because it's like being in Iran or something.
Yeah.
And the women that were there were covered from head to toe in black. And the Muslim, I'm sorry, but the problem of mass Muslim immigration around the world, and this wanting to implement Sharia law, comes from policies like the ones that you're talking about, where we're not allowed to even say. I mean, it takes you back to the loss of freedom of speech and the pushing down of the individual rights of the person who's actually from the country.
Yeah.
And I kind of think maybe that is what Donald Trump is doing, that has resonated with so many people, and why he got elected, because he actually said out loud what we weren't allowed to say.
Yeah.
Which is, it should be, your America First policy should be that you're taking care of Americans first and making sure that the lives that we were born into here and that we've been paying into with our taxes and hopefully, voting into and all those things, that way of life is being protected.
Yeah.
But we don't see that. Has homeschooling in Sweden always been illegal?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. Why did they say why that is there?
Well, the government knows best, right?
Right.
Well, I think part of it is
it's
because...
illegal in France now. And obviously, it's illegal in Germany.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea is that you have to know what you're doing.
Right.
And so you have to fit within what they think you should teach. You know, there's been a lot of like charter schools. That's kind of exploded. But then you've had issues with that because there are people who would take advantage of that system and not teach well. And it's a big mess. But it's been... This is just how you do things. Again, it's the lagom, right? You don't want to ruffle feathers. This is how we do things. This will go along. And of course, the government knows best. And it's just, especially in education, it's an idol, right? That you have to have the right credentials to be able to teach your kids. And we don't realize that the norm has been...
For hundreds of years.
Yeah. Has been way different.
Yeah.
So,
it's really true. I think when we, take sort of a step back at what's happening in the United States and we compare it to what's going on in Europe, what's happening specifically in the UK, but also, places like Sweden and Germany. I had a lady on the show. She's an American national. So, raised in South Carolina, met a gentleman from France, actually in the French military.
Okay.
And they moved to France, and they just wanted to homeschool their son.
Yeah.
And the French government said, no, you can't do it. And so they applied it all the normal ways. Well, they said that the reason they were doing it was to combat extremism, because they don't want the radical Muslim population, quote unquote, homeschooling their kids and then indoctrinating them into this extremism and anti-nationalism that we see come out of these communities. And so this woman took him to court, and they threatened to take her kid away from her. And so they moved. They moved back to the United States. They just recently, by the way, a lot of people on my show have been following that. And I heard from this couple, and they won their case, which is shocking given all they've gone through. But she's like, we're never going back there again because we realize how quickly our rights can be taken away from us. And really, the United States, Sam, is one of the last countries on earth that is truly free.
Yeah. Because that's what it is. It's an issue of freedom, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And parental rights. Yeah. And when you come in and say that, no, this is how you have to do it, it's, again, the government is overstepping boundaries. One thing that was really going back to the immigration aspect of things. So we've been involved in Africa a number of years through our church, working in northern Uganda, close to the South Sudanese border. And so there was a refugee camp that was established. It's the second biggest in the world, just south of the border to South Sudan because of the civil war that's going on there. And it'll make sense why I bring this up. So you had then, because of all the refugees coming in, you had a lot of NGOs come in and provide food, UNICEF, all kinds of different, World Vision, you name it, came in and wanted to help with the refugees. Well, what happened was that because of the poverty in that area already, the refugees were getting better education and better food than the locals.
Than the people who live there.
The people who live there. So they said, hey, this is not okay.
Yeah.
Could we please also be involved? And of course, so they also got benefited. So whatever the refugees were given, where there was education or food, the same was given to the natives or the local population.
Now your country's going broke.
Well, no, but I'm using that to show that move to the U.S. and we are kind of treating the illegal immigrants that are not refugees way better than our veterans or our own homeless. And I'm saying that because even if Africa can realize, hey, we have two different standards here, let's take care of everyone, they did. But here, now you have people who want to come here to just have a better life,
right,
and they get all these benefits. Well, what if I live in poverty in outskirts of Vancouver? If I would have come illegally, they would have all these kind of things. But because they were born in America, they don't have access to that.
It's crazy.
It's just nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, upside down and backwards. And honestly, we do it we're virtue signaling.
Yep.
We do it in the name of compassion.
Yep.
And there's really, as you said earlier, we were talking earlier today, there's nothing compassionate about the way that we're operating right now.
Right.
And not the least of it is compassionate to our own people. I think it's interesting to see the response of world leaders to President Trump and what he's doing and trying to sort of set the ship right again to say, listen, we are a nation of immigrants. We have a tremendous story of immigration here. I mean, yours is one of them here in the United States, and we welcome immigration, but we want it to be done legally. Right. And that goes back to, hey, can we be a nation of laws? And what we've seen in the last 5 years is just lawlessness. Yeah. Really. Parents of teens, listen up, because I have found an awesome Bible discipleship program that I think you're going to love. If you want your teens to own their faith instead of just regurgitating Bible facts, you need to know about RVL Discipleship, the curriculum. It's a powerful new curriculum that's been designed for homeschooled teens from our friends at Focus on the Family. Each lesson is taught by awesome Bible teacher Ray Vanderlyn. His semester-long course takes teens beyond fill-in-the-blank lessons to real-life application, helping them live out their faith with boldness and purpose. RVL curriculum is flexible, parent-friendly, and deeply engaging because it's been designed to spark real conversations about faith between you and your teens. Right now, you guys can get 2 free sample lessons at rvlcurriculum/HSJ, plus 10% off when you purchase the curriculum with code Heidi10. You guys, discipleship matters. Let's raise our kids to become lifelong disciples of Jesus. Go to rvlcurriculum.com/HSJ today.
When you have one party that are strongly favoring that, why are they doing that? Mm-hmm. I don't believe it's because of the goodness of their hearts. There's an ulterior motive, right?
No.
And we see that with the voting laws we talked about before, and in not needing voter ID and all these kind of things. And we find all these people, like what Doge is finding out about how many people that are on Social Security that are illegals or not even born yet or over
dead.
150 years old. And all of us should want things to be fair and right.
Yeah.
And find where there's fraud and take
ways
them to task.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's part of control, right? How can human nature wants control, and if it's left unchecked, it's going to take all the power it can. Yeah. And that's what we see in England. We see that in Europe. We see that in China and in Russia, and we see that slow creep that we're willing to give our freedoms away for comfort, because if I don't have to,
or the illusion that somehow we could have a, I put in air quotes, a classless society, this communal ownership of property, which is really communism, which has led to the oppression and the murder of millions of people around the world, because we weren't made to live that way. Right. I mean, God himself is a pretty big fan of, nations and walls. Yep. And nations have borders for a reason. And a lot of this, what we're dealing with is just the residual continual fallout from the fall. Yeah. Right. And so it's not a wrong thing to be to love your country. What do you think about the term Christian nationalist?
I think it's it's used the same way as racist is thrown out. There's no redeeming quality of it.
Right.
I know some people try to argue, it's better to be a Christian nationalist than an atheist globalist.
Yeah. They're going to pay you to be a fascist. The sort of far right. You want authoritarian government to serve your purpose. Yeah. That's how they see Christian nationalism.
It's the throw out word. If they can label you that, they can write you off as a crazy.
That's right.
And there's no redeeming quality to it. I'd say just ignore it, because it's the intention behind that word is to smear and to pigeonhole you and to silence you.
It's the New York Times loving to call people Christian nationalists.
Right.
You see this in the Washington Post. So-and-so is a Christian nationalist. And for a while I was saying, listen, I don't know what you guys mean, but if you mean Christian nationalist, if by that you mean I love the Lord Jesus and I love my country, well, then I guess I'm a Christian nationalist. And I think it might have been Rob McCoy who said, we throw off the label because that, it goes back to, methinks it doesn't mean what you think it means.
Exactly.
Right. And they really are. It's a derogatory term. And so when someone says, you're a Christian nationalist, the answer is, no, I'm not.
Yep.
I love my country
Yep.
and I love the Lord.
Exactly.
But I reject your labeling and the ideology behind what you have, this made up word, because
Exactly.
really it's a made up word, like
It is.
cisgender.
Yeah.
We also made that word up,
Yep.
right? It's dumb.
Yeah,
Right?
and it's
now,
made up to pigeonhole you and
Yeah.
to silence you.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's weaponized. And like I said, we just got to ignore it to move on.
If parents are interested in teaching their children, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but roll with me. If parents are interested in teaching their children about these systems of government, Marxism, capitalism, obviously, which is what our country operates in that system, communism, all the isms.
Yep.
I know you guys have done lots of different curriculum with your boys over the years. What are some of the things that you've done that have stood out to you that you thought that was actually worth it? That was great.
That's a good question.
I'm thinking, obviously, you've done Rick Green's Constitution Alive class, which is great. Oh my goodness. Biblical citizenship, so good.
Fantastic.
Constitution Alive. I did American Civics with Mike Ferris, which, by the way, if you guys are interested in that, you can go to civicscourse.com to look at that. But we've got an opportunity as parents.
I think it's a combination of things. So we didn't necessarily do like just curriculum. We did a lot more individual books and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So books, like the Tuttle Twins have some great resources.
Oh man, their stuff is great.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're shorter and they're
That was
specific
how I learned
topics.
about the Federal Reserve.
There you go.
I did not understand the Federal Reserve until I read it in a children's book from the Tuttle Twins.
Is that the Jekyll and Hyde one?
Yeah, well, that would, yes. Yeah, The Creature of Jekyll Island. That's what it was. So just talking about the Federal Reserve, and I read that to my kids, and I was like, oh, now I understand.
Yeah.
And I think parents shouldn't be afraid to learn right along with their kids.
Yeah. So that's one. Another one, I think, history-wise, looking at the impact of socialism and things like that, would be Bill Federer. He's got some fantastic books, and there's a ton of videos.
He does the American Minute, right?
American Minute, yeah. Subscribe to that. It's more than a minute, but it's great, and it just puts perspective from a faith angle of the history of the world, really. He has one book,
He's a walking encyclopedia.
Right. He's got a book of socialism that basically covering 6,000 years of socialism. Socialism isn't new. This has been going on for a long time. So anything about Bill Federer, he's got so many different topics that he's covering. I think that's really great. And then the founding of our country also have, David Barton and Tim Barton.
Wall builders.
Wall builders are fantastic in that as well. And then for a little bit older kids and for us as adults, so James Lindsay, he's not a believer, but he's doing these. He called it bullets. So it's on his podcast. They're about 15 minutes, and he talks very targeted on a specific issue about maybe it's the false choices that you get. Like if you're not for that, then you're against that, and then you're a racist. No, they gave you a false choice. So looking at some of those things, he's got a ton of those, probably 100 of them, but just short and kind of equips you and trains you how to combat some of those attacks or mind patterns that the left and CRT or DEI and that kind of stuff have. And then we've done a ton of biographies, so you get to see, how did people deal with this living in Germany or in the Soviet Union or even further back in founding fathers, even before that, and the heroes of the faith and that kind of aspect. So there's a lot of resources out there. I'm sure there's curriculum as well, but we've done a lot of just documentaries and kind of learning what we're dealing with at the moment and things like that.
Well, so. you can once you start doing that, it actually hasn't been that long. I mean, the United States is a young country. Yeah. We're very young. I mean, in comparison to the rest of the world, right? And you're not going to go back to the ancient world here like you would in Egypt or even in China. And we have learned a lot in the last 250 years. But boy, it seems like we haven't learned enough.
Right.
And I have been, really encouraged, obviously. I mean, I do what you guys do, and that's to follow Rick Green, and we've done the Patriot Academy and that kind of thing. But I do think there's something to be said for reading about people like Dietrich Bonhoeffer and William Wilberforce, who really put it all on the line, and some of them to the detriment of their own lives. I mean, Dietrich Bonhoeffer obviously killed for his position. Interesting to note that my friend Seth Gruber and the White Rose Resistance, he really highlights the story of Sophie Scholl. and her brother. And these guys were killed. I mean, they were young.
Yeah.
And they were killed for their beliefs, but they thought this is worth fighting for.
Yes.
This is something that's worth defending. And I think when we read those biographies to our kids, in some ways we're lighting a fire on them to say there are things that are more important than your iPhone.
Yeah.
You know, things that are more important than your comfort or where we're going to go on vacation or any of those things. And one of the things I know that I've talked to you guys about over the years, you and Charnes have taken your kids to Washington, D.C. And so you've walked like the halls. I mean, do you get, when you go there, are you guys like, every time I go, I'm floored.
Yep.
Trump is cleaning up DC, by the way, and it's not nearly as a loser of a city as it was 2 years ago. Dangerous. 2 years ago, which is dangerous.
Yeah.
Trump is cleaning it up, which is great. Shows you what a good leader can do. But you've taken your kids, right, to see the Magna Carta and the Declaration of Independence.
We've done
and
that.
has that had an impact?
Oh, yeah. There's so much history, even though we have a short history in our country. But yeah,
It's
we've done
rich.
homeschool trips. Yeah, we've been up in Boston, Lexington and Concord. We've been at Gettysburg, but also like the Flight 9, Flight
What do you
93
call
Memorial.
that? What do you call the? Is it the diorama in Gettysburg?
Cyclorama, right?
Cyclorama. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
the
right. And you
360.
can walk around it, and it is powerful.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is.
But this is what the cost of fighting for the abolition of slavery, right? So just learning that. There's a lot of hands-on things. And obviously, if you're on the West Coast, it's not as much.
Hey, man, we have Lewis and Clark and Pocahontas,
Yeah.
okay? We got a little, I mean, that's great.
But still, but there's so much out there, right? And that's another thing, too. Being in D.C., and we were there for 10 years lobbying for a nonprofit in regards to foreign aid and stuff. And we would have people from Europe that would come and join the group. And they were like, I can't believe you can do this. Because they said, if we can't go and visit our lawmakers in Brussels or in Holland or even in Sweden.
We just so take it for granted.
Yeah, and you can literally walk in unannounced, go through security, and then you knock on your member of Congress door. You're not guaranteed to see them, but you can share what's on your heart and what the issue is. And this is almost unheard of. In fact, the organization, when they tried to do a thing in one of the African countries, if we just want to show up and show solidarity, they thought it was a riot started. So the police came out and to usher them away. But it just shows how the access that we do have to our lawmakers.
Yeah.
And that they are representing us.
Well, now you got Trump in there, and he, took the fences down that Nancy Pelosi and the yahoos from the Democrat Party. It's funny to me, the stark difference that we see. And it's why you and I are so passionate about get off the bench, you guys. Engage. What's happening in Europe? Europe has for a long, long time been a bellwether for what is happening, what possibly could happen here. I am encouraged, and I wonder if you are too, but I am encouraged to see some of these changes, like this answer out of the Supreme Court when they're like, okay, a woman is a biological female. And we're like, thank you so much, right? It's a small little win. But I do think the Trump effect is real.
Yeah.
I think we're starting to see leaders from around the world rise up. Certainly the president of Argentina. He's an interesting figure.
Yes, he is.
That's going to be an interesting biography to read.
Yeah.
Someday. But it shows you the power of one person and one voice. And parents have tremendous authority and influence in the lives of their kids.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that we use the influences God's given us is to train our children, not only in righteousness, which is our first responsibility, train them to love the Lord, right, with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, but then also train them to love their country, to see a resurgence of patriotism. This is a beautiful place. And we've been given so much, and to whom much is given, much is required. And I think that is a responsibility, really, that sits on every parent, whether you homeschool your kids or not.
Yeah, because what we see across the world, where you have a totalitarian regime coming in, what do? They try to cut off the history of the people, right?
Yes. We've seen that in the
China.
country, and they've done it here in the United States with the toppling of the statues and all of that.
Right, or the 1619 Project and all these kind of things. Because if you can disconnect the people from their heritage, they are bound to repeat the same issues,
That's right.
So that's why it's such a big push for the for schools or for the media to kind of rewrite history that are good or ignore it completely. And we have to be the ones that are remembering those things.
Yeah, so good.
And I'm reading a book by Dennis Prager right now, and he talks about the Passover meal and the Seder, and how despite not being a nation for 2,000 years almost, Israel still had an identity that was common in the language because they had something to remember. They always would look back every week when they took the Sabbath meal. They would look back to the Exodus and all these things and remember these things.
And it would help them not to forget.
Exactly.
We're
So they had a
so
connection
forgetful.
to their history and the founding of their nation. So in the same way, it's important for us to remember the founding of our nation.
So you're
why
saying
we came.
we should keep it in front of us. It should always be in
Yeah.
front of us. Like the 4th of July should be a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. Independence Day. It should be a big deal to us. And it's sort of become, I really, not to keep bringing this back to the weirdos that have been running our country for the last 4 years, but the lack of patriotism and the lack of, and that's by design.
Yeah.
People say, oh, we
Right.
just don't care anymore. No, that's by design. When I was growing up, you know, we learned America the Beautiful, we loved our country. We were taught to love it and taught to be thankful. And if we don't teach our children to love this country, they won't love it.
Yep. It's a communist tactic, right? To speak down on the past and then create this kind of vacuum. It's like, well, if that's not good, what is? And then you speak in what you want to indoctrinate them in, and you see that shift. That's what we see in the schools. Like when you have a third grader, it's like, well, are you really a girl or are you a boy?
Yeah.
And you sow those seeds of doubt,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you get to that questioning stage where you insert what you want to insert to those kids, and then they start to believe it and live it out, and then
And then bam, you've got a kid who's injured for life.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is
Absolutely true.
crazy.
You guys have done some work with Turning Point.
Yes.
And they're doing some pretty great things, especially through Turning Point Faith. Lucas Miles was here, and we recorded a couple of shows. Lucas and I had a hoot and holler and
Oh,
good
he's
time.
great.
And that guy's fire.
He is.
He's really fire, and he has a passion for the church and for the church to engage. I know that you do also.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as we sort of wrap this up today, if you had a message that you could leave the audience with today, you know, we've talked about geopolitical events. We're talking about kind of what's happening in Europe and the fact that it foreshadows, I think, a little bit of what's coming to the United States if we don't wake up. What's your message to pastors? You are a pastor, and you guys have a passion for the local church and for engaging in your community, which you know, I think you have so much street cred because you actually do the thing that you are telling people to do. I mean, I think even though I didn't win my run for Congress, it did give me a little street cred.
Oh yeah.
That I actually did the thing and I ran.
Yep.
And I want people to do that. Like let's put our money where our mouth is. What's your encouragement to pastors and to Christians who are listening to this, who are like, I do love this country. It is worth fighting for. How can we engage?
Yeah, I think it's important for pastors to understand that someone is discipling their people. Mm-hmm. The question is it the media? Is it, you know, Facebook, TikTok, or is it the church? Mm-hmm. And we need to be able to speak to the issues that we are dealing with as a nation. We don't live in a vacuum. You know, our faith is not theoretical only, right? We know what we believe, but it has to have an outworking. Mm-hmm. You know, faith without works is dead. So it has to be translated into some practical things. Mm-hmm. And that's where, you know, the church shouldn't be, you know, a news commentary.
Right.
We're not asking about that. But there's issues that affects everyday life more than ever, whether that is the trans issue or immigration or Israel. What's the role of Israel?
Yeah, boy, that's a great...
and the church have answers to these things where the world is looking for answers, and especially our church members are looking, how do I process these things? And if we don't talk about those things and bring it in the natural conversation or
then
on
they're
a
going to
Sunday
talk
morning,
about it from the position of CNN News or wherever they heard about it.
Exactly.
So you're saying bring the conversation into your churches.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, this is obviously not the same thing, but I've been, you know, kind of on a rampage lately because we're so screwed up talking about sex in the culture and telling parents, you should be talking about sex with your kids. You should be normalizing it in your home. You should be the one who is setting the tone for a conversation about sex and gender and sex inside of marriage and how awesome it is, because it's God who gave it to us and the world is redefining it.
Yeah.
But if we're unwilling to have those conversations with our kids, the world will define sex for them.
Yeah. Yeah, in the same way, to bring that back to the Word, right? What does the Bible say about these issues? Because the Bible speaks to so many things. It's the guidebook for life. And we can't be shy about it. We have to, when things comes up, let's address them head on. The amount of churches that said nothing that when Roe versus Wade was over.
I know. Shocking. Yeah. We should have been dancing in the street.
Right.
Yeah.
So we need to not be afraid of speaking to these issues and understand that the political issues of today are really biblical issues. And it's not that the church is starting to encroach on culture. It's the culture is coming in, and politics is talking about issues that are really biblical issues. And we need to frame it that we're not being political, we're being biblical. And that gives, I hope, a relief to pastors to say, I can speak to this because this is a biblical issue.
That's right.
And people are going to have opinion. You're not going to win everyone over, but you have to know who you're trying to please. Do you want to equip your body to be as prepared as possible to deal with the things of life? Or do you want to be that hospital? All you do is bandage people that have been beaten up all week, right? We are not just a hospital. We're an army. We're sending people out to change the world. We're to be world changers for good, to love our neighbor, and that needs to look like something. So let's explain and talk about what that is. What does it mean to have compassion in these areas? And where has love been redefined by culture and they say what loving is. It's like, no, this is what true love is.
It should be Christians who are impacting the culture and changing the culture, not the world changing the church. And that's certainly what's been happening. You have a podcast, the Salt and Light podcast. Tell us about it. Yeah, so I just wanted to see people be engaged in the world, and I believe that we all have been planted somewhere, whether that is in the family, in our in schools, or in our business, or in arts and entertainment. And I want people to see that you can serve the Lord wherever He's planted you. We need to get away from the aspect of it, unless it happens within the four walls of the church, it's not valid. I think that's a lie of the enemy. Right, it is.
To try and confine us and keep us away and locked away.
We belong in entertainment. We belong in education. We belong in politics. We belong in medicine. God's people belong in the culture.
Exactly. So I'm trying to bring on people that I know or that I appreciate to kind of speak to those things. I've had you on, and which has been a blast. So we'll see where it goes. I'm learning and getting better at it. But the idea is to equip the body and to empower them to step out and be salt and light.
And if people want to find your podcast, where they find it?
Yeah, just Salt and Light, and then my name's Sam Sanden.
I love it. Yeah. Sam Sanden, you're a national treasure here in Washington State. So thank you for coming on today. It's just been a delight to have you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, you guys, I hope you've been encouraged by this, and I hope it fires you up a little bit. We need to understand what's happening on the world stage instead of sticking our heads in the sand and hoping somebody else will take care of it. If we were in the business of educating ourselves and paying attention, asking the Lord for wisdom, passing on the truth of God's word to our children, a love of this country, and a desire to become engaged, I could not agree with my friend Sam more. You are born for this time in ministry. God has you here. It's your life, you guys. Show up for it. Thank you so much for listening today, for visiting our sponsors. If you've got questions for me, please submit them to me at HeidiSt.John.com/Mailbox Monday. I love to hear from you. If you're interested in some of the things we've talked about today, if we think it's noteworthy, we'll stick it at HeidiSt.John.com/mentions. And if you're interested in my calendar for the year, you can go to HeidiSt.John.com/events. We love you guys. Thanks for listening today, and I'll see you right back here again at the intersection of faith and culture. Well, you guys ask me all the time about ways that you can disciple your young children, and I want to tell you about something I found that I think you're going to love. I am always searching for curriculum that's theologically solid, rich in apologetics, and wait for it, easy to use. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about the Answers Bible curriculum for homeschool from my friends at Answers in Genesis. This amazing program covers the entire Bible in just 4 years, and it was created specifically for kindergartners through 5th graders to be taught at the same time, which is going to save you time and simplify your day. You guys are going to get quality that you expect from AIG, and it's deep, fun, packed with truth, and designed to equip your kids to defend the faith. If you're ready to try it, head on over to AnswersBibleCurriculum.com/Heidi and download a free lesson to get started. That's AnswersBibleCurriculum.com/Heidi.